All right. Hey everyone, my name is Candace Armour. So excited because today I'm going to be sharing with you guys a little more about my personal journey to overcoming promiscuity and pornography. Okay, so first and foremost, I think it's important for me to first talk about kind of my exposure to porn. In my video that I talked about why I decided to stop having sex, I kind of briefly discussed why I made the decision to stop having sex, but that I overcame this porn addiction. And when you think about an addiction, it's something that is impulsive, that really controls you. You don't have control over it. And I had to realize that I had this issue with pornography. Like, seriously, like it was one of those things where it was like anytime I ended up alone, guess who was finna about to go to pornhub.com or whatever these porn sites are, right? I forgot all the names of them, but we all know that if you have a porn addiction, that it's so easily accessible because of the internet. And so for me, it was initially, I basically initially was introduced to porn as a young girl by way of like HBO late night shows, right? Where they have this soft porn and they're doing all this stuff and you're like, oh my God, this makes my body feel a certain way. Like, what is going on? And then that piqued my interest. And then I feel like that was like an open door for me to actually start having sex when I did start having sex. And then even when I wasn't having sex, when I still was having sex, even when I was in a relationship, multiple times I would still be watching porn. I would still have this addiction. And I remember just feeling like that feeling that you get where it's like, oh my God, this is so secretive. I need to be watching this alone. Then while you're watching it alone, it's done and you feel so like, ugh, what did I just do? And I just got tired of feeling that. And I really just felt like, especially after I made the decision to stop having sex and to pursue purity, part of me was like, well, I still hadn't had sex, but porn is okay. But no, it really isn't, because it's feeding your mind something that you say that you don't want. So if you're trying to pursue purity, for me, I'm like, how am I going to say I want to be pure, but I'm over here watching porn and feeding my lustful desires by way of what I see on the screen? And so it started out as something, like I said, I was introduced by way of other people to porn, and then it started being something that I sought out on my own. And I remember I would have spurts where I would like stop watching porn, and then I would have moments where I would like bam, 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 like be on my porn like addiction problem. And it probably was in moments where I was like extremely weak or stressed or whatever else to, find relief, and even like masturbation, all of that stuff. It was absolutely an addiction. And for me, it was like, I didn't really see anything wrong with it for a long time. And then I started to really get convicted about it, because I'm like, this is an open door to all the stuff that I say that I don't want. And I remember having this conversation with my one friend and telling her and really being vulnerable about my experiences, saying, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this is a struggle that I'm currently going through. And I think that was one of the really big things for me that helped me overcome, was not to just say, hey, I want to do this. I no longer want to be addicted to this. But it was opening my life and being vulnerable to someone who could actually help me and who had overcome that same thing. And so I made that decision to tell her about it. And she really gave me some amazing insight. And one of them was just seeing how just that porn was opening my life to kind of spiritual activity and like negative spiritual activity that I didn't really need. Like, if it isn't of God, then it's of the devil. So for me, I was like, yo, like, I'm not really trying to be in this space where I'm ushering, demonic activity or negativity or whatever this is, this spiritual, negativity into my life in a space that it's not welcomed, right? So I had to make that decision to stop. But then even after that, I know one of the other really big things that helped for me was to start living a life of fasting and of prayer and fasting, and really getting deliverance from the spirit of lust, because that addiction to porn is really just rooted in lust. And once I had to get and deal with that spirit of lust, I really had to understand that there was nothing that God could not break, right? Like, God is the one who sent his son Jesus to die on the cross for our sins. So not only did I have to receive like forgiveness, ask for forgiveness, but I knew that God had the ability to break that stronghold over my life. And so I began to submit to God in a way that I had never submitted before. And I started praying and fasting very consistently. And why I say fasting is extremely important for my personal journey to overcoming pornography was because you're dying to yourself, right? The Bible talks about, and I think that's Matthew 6:24, where it talks about, if any man would come after me, let him take up his cross, deny himself and follow me, right? And when it talks about denying yourself, that really means like denying your own desires. The Bible also talks about how your temptations are birthed out of your own sinful desires. And the Bible also talks about that whenever in the face of temptation, there will always be a way of escape. And so I started to realize that, wow, like I'm going to have to deal with my temptations and my desires by way of fasting and really dying to myself, dying to my sinful, selfish desires. And you do that by way of fasting, because when you're fasting, you're pulling yourself away from food, away from things. You're building up a discipline that you would not have had otherwise. And so by way of me building up this discipline, I was really able to draw closer to God. He was drawing closer to me. I was healing those broken areas of my life, but also getting up this spiritual fortitude to be able to say no and have self-control, to say no to pornography, to say no to some of these things that held me back, right? So that was a really big thing for me, was to start really consistently praying and fasting, being in the Word of God. And honestly, I talk about this a lot in the 30-day devotional, the morning after prayer that I wrote. And honestly, it really shifted my life when I started to look at my addiction to pornography and my issues with sexuality as more than just, a thing that I had to deal with on my own. I started looking at it as a spiritual issue, and I also looked at it as an issue that could not be solved without the help of the Father. And when I really began to deal with my sexuality and my sexual desires when it came to pornography and promiscuity and even living this life of purity, I had to invite God into that process. And that's one of the main reasons that when I felt compelled to write the morning after prayer, that really just started as an email devotional that I started sending out to women, and they started telling me, wow, like this is such an amazing journey of yours, and it's really helping me to see myself in a different way. It's really helping me to understand that if I've had sex before, I can stop having sex. It's really helping me to understand that, I can break this addiction to pornography. And by way of that, I was actually able to translate that into a book that has really helped so many different women. And honestly, like when it comes to pornography, it's one of those things where it's all mental. The enemy likes to try to get you when you're alone and by yourself, because there's the temptation, like it's just you and your phone. But you have to begin to put things into place. So my big thing was not just saying that I was going to do it, but having accountability, but being accountable to myself by throwing away all my toys, by getting rid of putting locks on my phone with regards to me going to certain websites. If I really said that I didn't want to do certain things, I should probably put a lock on my phone and give the password to somebody else for these certain websites that I was trying to get to watch porn. And a lot of times when you did that, a lot of times I would even put in like passwords on my own stuff that was like different passwords than my usual passwords or whatever. And when I would be like, oh my God, I forgot what the password is, I would remember why I put it in place and that I wasn't going to go through like this entire process of unlocking all of this stuff, because I would just feel dumb. Like, girl, this is what you said you didn't want. So that was my personal journey to overcoming pornography. Definitely, if you guys have more questions, definitely let me know. Make sure you're commenting down in the comment section so that I know kind of what resonated with you, what aspects of this story you want to hear more about. And I'm really all about honestly helping other women and men get and break free from, demonic strongholds, especially when it comes to pornography. Like, that is one thing that will get you and will have you all the way messed up. Because even when you get ready to get married to somebody, if you haven't dealt with that issue, it's gonna still be an issue within your marriage. Like having someone present there isn't gonna make that issue go away. And me having been in relationships, that wasn't making my porn addiction go away, and it was actually adding fuel to fire, because I'm over here doing all this extra stuff because of what I didn't watch on this porn, and I'm over here having unrealistic expectations out of my sexual experiences because of my experience through pornography. So I just believe that there's nothing that God can't break you out of, but it's something that you have to take initiative on, and you have to be intentional about you getting healed and getting set free and delivered and actually living the life of purity that you desire to live. If that's what you want to do, then you got to be serious about it. So I really, really hope this helped you guys. Make sure you leave some comments. Check out the Morning After Prayer devotional. The link will be included actually in the notes below. So let me know if you guys have any other questions, how you guys are liking this, how this is changing your life. And I appreciate you guys. Love you. And if you're not already following me on Instagram, make sure that you check me out at Candace Janae. It's CandaceJunee. So make sure you check me out and come holler at me. See ya.